So, welcome to our second Lunch and Learn. Today, we're going to be talking about touch chat editing beyond the basics. This is me. I'm Reiko. I think most of you know me. This is where you can find me. I have a QR code here right now. One of the resources that we're really tapping into for these Lunch and Learns is our blog. So, if you want to use your phone and open that up right now, you're welcome to do that. We have two new tabs that we've introduced on our blog recently. One is our events tab and one is our iPad troubleshooting tab. So hopefully those will be helpful to you. We are kind of updating those regularly. The iPad troubleshooting tab I've updated with a lot of things that are happening quite frequently. Like I know that there's been some issues with iPad 6s and sort of breathing. And so there's a little bit of information about that. And then under the events page, we'll be putting links to our recordings, links to any slide decks, anything like that. And then you can also find the QR codes to register for our future events there as well. These are two resources that we've introduced recently. So the one over here, the AAC resources one, the idea with this document is that you just kind of like print it out, have it around, and then you use the QR codes as you need them. So we have, this is the AAC learning community in Teams. We are phasing out our email lists. So you may be kind of on both right now, and that's okay. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll phase out those email lists because I find that what's happening is anytime anyone kind of replies to that thread, everybody who's on that thread gets a copy of that email, and that doesn't really work for anybody. So we're going to phase that out and try to use Teams a little bit more. We have a link to our YouTube channel. This is the slide deck and other resources from our AAC implementation live training that we do every month. If you'd like to come to one of those live trainings, please just email one of us, either me or Kim or your school SLP, and we can get you registered for that. We have a link to our blog again, and a direct link to our iPad troubleshooting page and our events page. So today we are going to be talking about these three things. We're going to do a very detailed guided tour of TouchChat. We're going to look at some TouchChat settings, and then we're going to talk about editing in TouchChat. We'll talk about a lot of things. We'll probably go quite quickly. The idea behind this video, or sorry, this live event actually isn't necessarily for you to do these things while I'm talking to you. I'm just going to show you a whole bunch of options, and they're not all going to work for you or your child. Not everybody is going to need all of these features. But what you'll be able to do following this is look at the uploaded video, and I'll do the timestamps underneath. And so if you're looking at, you talked about a jokes page, where can I find that again? Then you can go on that YouTube video, find the link to that, and then click directly to that part of the video. So sit back, relax, and take it all in, and then worry about the iPad piece a little bit later. Now, you may have noticed that one thing that's missing today is implementation. We've decided to sort of separate out implementation from like the technology kind of piece. We're focusing on the technology piece today. There are lots and lots of supports for you to learn more about implementation. We also have AAC implementation training that happens once a month. And the next one is happening Wednesday, May 1st. That'll be happening after school at Carson. But please make sure that if you're interested in coming to that, please make sure that you sign up. If nobody signs up, we don't run the session. Okay. That session is open to anybody. So it can be a family member. We've had babysitter kind of nanny kind of people come, behavior interventionists, behavior consultants, private speech pathologists. Anybody who wants to come can definitely come to that. Just please let us know beforehand. Your third resource for implementation, at least in terms of sort of like introductory stuff, is going to be our YouTube channel. So our YouTube channel is at NVSD AAC SLP. Again, you'll get a QR code for that. But we have, for example, an intro to TouchChat video there, and you can watch that for some basic information about TouchChat and using TouchChat. I'm going to dive in. Most of the questions that I got were around these three things. So how do I add a page or a subcategory into a category? How do I find words quickly? And then just sort of featurey things like visual scenes, stories, script, stuff like that. We are going to start with things that are already in TouchChat that you may or may not know about. We're going to start in the Word Power 60 basic vocabulary. You may have heard me say this before. Saying TouchChat is like saying Microsoft Word. You could be using any number of templates within this app. So we're going to use this particular one because most of our students are on this one. You may have a very customized vocabulary that doesn't have some of these features. The other thing that can happen is that TouchChat is continually updating their template. So if you're somebody that your child has been on TouchChat for a really, really long time, you may find that these features are not available or that those pages are not on the iPad. And it might just be a matter of then importing those pages, which we will cover in a minute. We had a question about finding vocabulary quickly. Now, the number one way for you to find vocabulary quickly on an iPad is just time, right? We need to get used to where words are. We need to give ourselves the grace to give ourselves the time to just learn where vocabulary is. So that's going to be the first thing. Now, the second thing I'm going to show you is a tool to get you there. Just for clarification, I don't think most of my students are going to be using this. This is for you as the adult modeling. This is for you to find the vocabulary. So try not to rely on this too heavily, I guess my point. So let me just go back. So in the upper left-hand corner on the home page, we have a button that says ABC 123. Again, if you don't, or if your button does something different, it might be that you have a highly customized version, and then we'll need to have an individual conversation about that. But this is just the template. So we'll go into ABC 123. And then near the bottom, we have this button that says Find Word. Sorry, at the bottom, next to the home button, Find Word. And then what we can do is type in there. So I'm going to type a word like apple. And see how as I'm typing, the grayed out version of the text is coming in. That means to me that apple is in there, but I know like lychee isn't in here. So if I go L-Y, see how it's not auto-filling? That means that that word is probably not in there. Anyways, we'll go back and find apple. I'm going to hit find. And then it gives me the path to get to apple. So, and when you select that, it should guide you all the way there. Now, you may have noticed that it took me through drinks to get there. I don't know. It's a quirk of the system. It sometimes does give you like a very roundabout way to get there. And so sometimes you will also need to use your logic. If I know that I just went into groups and I don't have to go into drinks. I could just also go into food, right? So you might also have to do a bit of thinking, but that's okay. And then fruit and veg. And then I know that apple was right there. So that is the first thing. Hope this is not going too quickly for you. This is your main homepage. Most of the things we're going to look at today will be under groups. And we'll kind of go in order. This was an addition at some point. I can't remember when they added it, but I love that they added it. This button here, oh, there was an imagine button. I'm realizing right now that you can't see where I'm necessarily pointing, but on the left upper side of the page, we have a button that's called imagine. And this has words like prince, princess, ghost, fairy, mermaid. I don't know why, but unicorn's not on here. But we can put all those kinds of words here and talk about make-believe or fairy tales or Disney movies or anything like that. I love that this page is here. Let's go back to groups. We also have a page for jokes. So we're going to look at the far right of the page. There's a button here that says jokes, haha. It's actually a blue button. And there's a whole bunch of jokes here. So you can press this top, we'll look at this top joke. I don't even know what it is. How did the cow cross the road to get to the movies? So this can be a really, really great way to socially engage peers in the classroom. There's lots of room to add more jokes. So there's the paired buttons here along the left, and that's one column of jokes, but there's lots of room for your own jokes. And I believe so what I just pressed was the arrow buttons on the bottom of the page. That takes us into more knock knock joke type territory. Again, lots of social reinforcement there. We also have a phonics page. So this is we'll go along the fourth row now. We have a phonics page, and when I press that, I don't want to turn up my iPad volume because that might give us some feedback or something like that. But when I press these buttons, it actually sounds out the letters. So when I press this, it says B. When I press N, it says mm. So you can see at the top, it says phonics with short vowels. And then at the top right-hand corner, we can press the arrow button and it will go into long vowels. And then right in the second row, top right, we can press beginning keyboard. And this gives us a keyboard in alphabetical order. Sometimes early on in our as we're learning to type and things like that, sometimes an ABC keyboard can be nice instead of a what we call a QWERTY keyboard. So that's an option for you too. I just noticed there's a beginning numbers page too. So if we press that, then we have 1, 2, 0, and then we have times in the upper right corner. So that's a little bit more simplified than the other math page that's in here. So that's a nice option for you as well for early learners. Okay, we're going to go back into groups, and we're still on that fourth row. Under the school page, now, many of you have possibly explored this page in terms of adding routines and things like that. But along the top, I just want to highlight a few things. So if you go into calendar time along the top row, it'll give you kind of simplified days of the week pages and things like that. Like if I go into today is, it'll just simplify that. I know that when you go into the time page, there's a lot of stuff going on that page. And sometimes it's nice to have just the days of the week. So what is the date today? It is Wednesday, April 10th. Thank you, Kim. And it says 2023, so I'm going to have to change that, but we'll pretend 2023. Okay, back to groups and school. The other thing that's nice in here at the top row is the whiteboard. And you can like literally draw pictures, select different colors. And then I think if you press this arrow, no, where is it? Okay, so if you press where it says whiteboard, that's how you clear it. But this might be, say we're just talking about the ah sound, right? We can just write that one letter if we want to. There's lots of different ways that we can use this. Sometimes we're decompressing after an incident and we might say, yeah, this is me, and this is my friend, James, and James took my ball, and that made me sad. So you can do that kind of stuff there as well. There.
To whiteboard.
Okay, so the question was, how do you get to whiteboard? So you go into groups, school, and then top row where it says whiteboard, right next to groups, right there. Oh, good. So I feel like, okay, so you've learned something. One thing. Sometimes I get asked, we're doing a Australian animals unit right now, and my kid is loving it. Where should I put the vocabulary? Number one, animals page, probably, right? If they were doing a little presentation or something and we just want somewhere to put the stuff and save it, you can, on this school page, if you click the right arrow, We have lots of room here. So you can put the buttons for a presentation at the top there if you want to. We also have these theme pages. So if I go into a theme, then I can kind of create a core vocabulary kind of situation. So if I put wombat, kangaroo, capybara here, I can still access my I love wombat, for example. So that page is there for you as well. And you have 6 themes available. So that there's lots of room for that. Now, when we think about it, if this child is loving kangaroos all of a sudden, we don't want them to have to go groups, school, next page, themes, when they could just go groups, animals, right? So put it where it makes the most sense. If you think that this is just the thing that we're going to do now and then possibly forget about, then this might be an okay page to do that. We're going to keep going along this 4th row. We have animal sounds, or if you want to maybe show your kids or not. Some kids really enjoy this, but when you press these buttons, it'll actually, like if you press moo, it'll say moo. So you can say cow says moo, for example. And then the last thing on this 4th row is news. This is actually kind of interesting, and I don't think this gets used enough. So what you would do is record things. So for example, say your family went to the water slides on the weekend, and you had lots of fun. So what you could do is under home news, you could record something that says, I went to the water slide on the weekend. And then once we get to school on Monday morning, we could play that. On the other end, school could say, we made cupcakes today. And then home could play that school news as well. And so that's a nice way to have messages going back and forth and talking about things outside of where they happened. So that's kind of cool. Okay, we're going to move on to the next row. On the very far right, we have a button here called Writing to Apps. Now, this is not something that a very emergent communicator necessarily needs to learn to do, but as students are able to, once kids sort of figure out like, oh, this is for communication, this can be a nice thing to do. So we go into Writing for Apps. Those top buttons, if you go through and do listen to step 1, 2, 3, 4, it'll tell you all the directions you need. It's spoken, and the text comes up in the message window. But for example, let's see here. Hold on. I'm going to say, I like it. So I have some words now. I'm going to go into groups, Writing to Apps on the far right near the bottom. Go to the top message window and I hold it down and I copy. And then I go to note. And then I can just, when I just have to tap it and it'll give me the option to paste. And it says, I like it. This can be a way for somebody to hand in work. So you can either screenshot what you have here and email that to a teacher or just email this note to a teacher as well. Okay, and then on the very bottom row, there's actually a lot of things down here that are underused, and so let's take a look at them. Sometimes people want to know where they can add a page. Maybe somebody has like a very special interest. So I've made Peppa Pig pages, I've made flag pages, I've made all sorts of pages, and these bottom 3 extra pages are great places to do that. So I'm going to go into the first one. You can see that the core is already set up in the same way that it is on other pages. And all you have to do is add your nouns in there. So if I hit I, it'll do the same thing where it'll give you access to some select verbs. And then also this dark pink square is supposed to be the category word. So if you're doing a page about flags, then in that pink spot, you would put flags. And then we'll go back into groups. The next button we have here is stories and scripts. Just so you know, if your child started using TouchChat like more than 5 years ago, you may or may not have these buttons at the bottom, or they may be in a different order or look slightly different. And so again, we'll cover how to get those in a moment. So we'll look at stories and script. These all look just slightly different and they have similar functions. I'm going to open up stories and saved phrases 1, and you can just put, you know, this could be a list of gestalts, for example. If you have if your child is a gestalt language learner, you could also use it for transition routines. You could use it for all sorts of things. The thing that you will need to remember, just so you know, say you add a sequence for going to the bathroom here, for example, we'll go back and that button right there where it says stories and saved phrases 1, you'll also want to edit that button and make sure that it says bathroom sequence or something like that. The next one here is photos. This can be really nice for, again, sharing information. Like if you have a pet at home, you can add a few pictures, and this can be a really nice way to connect with peers. And then we have, I'm going to skip ahead one, and we'll look at visual scenes first. This is a similar kind of feature. We're going to go into me. Now, there's a little bit more room in this one. There's one main topic in the middle, and then a whole bunch of statements around it. So it's a slightly different layout. When would I use this one versus the other? Maybe somebody is new to sharing information and they need a fairly simplified page that maybe goes in sequence, maybe doesn't. I would use the one that we were looking at before, where under the photos. If you have more to say, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes of things that you can say about something. So this just has a little bit more information, right? This particular photo that they've chosen is very, very simple. Like it's just this kid's head. So it's really going to be about me. I like to use these for like maybe a vacation or something. I like to use context rich photos. So you might have, say you went to Disneyland and everyone takes that photo where it's like the family and then the castle in the background, right? So I would put that picture there actually, and then I would put some facts about Disneyland, maybe my favorite ride, maybe some questions like, have you been to Disneyland? What was your favorite ride? Things like that. So this can just give you a little bit more flexibility because it has a few extra buttons, but this is a nice way to share information as well. And just having that picture cue can provide a lot of context for somebody who needs some communication supports. And then we'll look at videos. Again, we're in group. So sometimes there are kids who really, really study specific video clips. And so I wouldn't necessarily put video clips in everybody's communication system. But if you have a child that really, really studies video clips, step 1 of this process is going to be getting that video clip. And I would Google this, get the video clip and get it onto the talker. We don't want to do this in a way where you have to rely on internet because sometimes we don't have reliable access and that can get upsetting. So get the video clip onto the iPad first, and then you can link it here and you can actually watch short video clips inside TouchChat. I wouldn't use this necessarily as like a recreational thing. We want to make sure that it stays communicative, but sometimes there's things like oops, and sometimes Gestalt language processors will use clips like that communicatively. So you can experiment with this a little bit. And then I have something fun in the corner here. Hey Siri and Alexa, they're exactly the same. I personally have Google at home, so I had to change one of these to Hey Google, and it totally works. But then if you have one of these devices in your home, you can actually ask it things, right? And you say, there's a button on the left here, and you say, Hey Siri, what's the weather today? And then Siri will reply. So that can be a really motivating cause and effect kind of thing. And you see here that you can actually request some songs. You can request these songs and more. So if there's a particular favorite song that you have, then you can also add that on. So we will move on to settings. So I don't know how much you've gone into the settings. Most of the time we don't need to, but I'm just going to highlight just a couple things for you, okay? So first of all, upper right corner, we're going to hit the menu button and then go into settings. It's divided into, like you'll see gray bars that go across, so it's divided into sections. So the first section we're going to look at is under editing. There's something called a menu passcode. I've turned mine off for the purposes of this webinar so that I don't have to keep putting in my menu passcode. But it can be really valuable in terms of kids accidentally editing. All you need to do is change something accidentally once. There's no undo button. And so it can be really upsetting for kids if they do that accidentally. So I do recommend that everybody turns on the menu passcode, and then all of our iPads have the same password to make sure that ICT can support us so that everybody can get in. So just make sure you put that in. It's okay if kids know their passcode. I'm more worried about them accidentally changing things. The next thing we're going to look at is voices. I have some kids that are growing up, and as they sort of reach that grade 5, 6, 7 sort of age, I do have that conversation where they go from a child voice to an adult voice. Also, actually, teenage girls as well. You might want to go from a child girl voice to like more an adult girl voice. So that's something to look at as well. Also, sometimes I go and we have a young boy using a woman's voice, and so we don't want to do stuff like that, right? So that's something to take a look at. You can also change the rate of speech. So sometimes people say the iPad talks too fast and it can never understand what it's saying. You can adjust the rate with the slidey button here. I wouldn't go too slow, but just do it a little bit at a time, and then you can press this test button as you go along. So that can help as well. Okay, next one, speech display bar. So the feature we were just talking about, hold on, I'm just moving things around here, is this 1, 2, 3, 4 down here. We have show icons. Mine is on right now, but if I turn this off, you'll see that my icons go away in that message window. Now, sometimes people think that these icons will support literacy, and they just so you know they don't. If if your child is in like a sight word kind of place, then you may want to turn those icons off. If your child is in more of a just want to confirm that the word went up there kind of place, you might want to show those icons and leave them on. It can also be a nice way for kids to confirm that the talker is saying what they meant to. So not necessarily with the core vocabulary, but they might say dog, and for them to look and be like, yeah, I meant to say dog, or oops, that wasn't right. I need to say cat. So for more emerging communicators, I do like to have this on, so showing the icons. For kids that are um, more independent with this communication and with literacy, then sometimes I do turn the icons off. So depending on your child, you might have different things. You may have also noticed that my words were highlighting as it spoke. That's also a feature. If you go down to the bottom of the screen here, we have visible cursor. You can turn that on and off. And I'm going to move it up a little bit. It gives you a place. Where is it? Highlight spoken word here is yellow. So that's how you change that. Right above that, we have something called tap action. For the most part, what you want is when you press the message window, you want it to speak. That's what we want. If your child is hyperlexic, so by that I mean their literacy skills are higher than their language skills, sometimes it's nice to have this function. So I'm going to go into tap action. I'm going to change that to speak and enlarge text. Let's take a look at what that does. So, like I said, when I press the top message window before it was speaking, right? So now what it does is it does this. It takes away the icons and you just see the words. The other time that this is really nice is if somebody is really independent in the community, so they can tap the window and show it to a communication partner. Like imagine if you're at Tim Hortons or something like that, you can put in your order and then turn it around so that the text is really big. So those are the two situations when I usually use that. Back into settings. And the last thing we're going to look at is, if you keep going down, speak. As you are learning to go into the keyboard and things and type, as you press letters, you do initially want it to speak the letters to confirm that that's what you want, right? So then what we would do is turn the speak characters on. If at some point somebody is spelling more fluently and we don't necessarily want that, you can turn that off. You can also turn off speak words, you can turn off speak sentences. I don't know why you would do that, but you hypothetically could. Another thing that's nice here is at the bottom of the speak section, we have something called prevent interruption. So you know how you get a whole bunch of words going and then somebody presses the message window and it talks for 10 minutes? If you turn prevent interruption on, you should be able to just tap the screen and it'll stop that. So I do recommend you turn that on if that's something that is happening. I just learned that there's something here called dynamic grammar labels, but I'm not seeing it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Under buttons, there's a button here called dynamic grammar labels. This is, I think, new because I just noticed it. I didn't notice it before. So when I say eat, see how just to the left of the eat button, it says ate and eating? That is because dynamic grammar labels is on. And I do recommend that, especially for emergent communicators. If I turn that off, it just says ate and dash ing. You see that right here? It says ate, but so eat, and then to say eating, I need to add the ing. But in terms of like literacy, to know eating as a sight word versus eat plus ing as a sight word, or sorry, as two things that we need to put together, I feel like just having the word eating there is more helpful for some students. Now we're gonna get to the nitty gritty of what you want to learn. Okay, so first thing to know, we're gonna go home. First thing to know is that there's no undo button in WordPower, or sorry, in TouchChat. So the first thing you want to do is do like a save as. You know, when you have like a Word template and you want to type into it, but you don't want to change the original template, you need to do a save as, right? So if we do a save as and I completely mess things up, then I can always go back to my previous version. So that's what we're going to do first. So we'll go into vocab, choose new vocab, menu, and then copy a vocab. And then today I'm going to choose, what you would do is you would choose your most recent vocabulary. Today, what I'm going to do is choose the template. So Word Power 60 Basic. And then I'm going to name it, and I'm going to name it with my initials. And then I'm going to name it with the date and year, month, date, so that when it alphabetizes, the most recent one is at the bottom. 2024-04-10. Save. Okay, and let's open that up. So let's just review adding a button. So we're going to go into places. Say, for example, my child is now going to start high school at Sutherland. So what I want to do is make sure that Sutherland is on here. Now, I also want to make sure that this picture is visible, and these buttons aren't very big. So what I like to use actually is use logos. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Safari. I just had it open, and Google Sutherland Secondary. Now, there's two ways I can get this image. I can either hold this, like put my finger on it, hold it down, and save to photos, but for some reason that was not working on this web page. If it doesn't work for you, it's not you. Sometimes the web pages are just set up like that. So I'm just gonna zoom in here, zoom in as big as I can get it, and then I'm gonna take a screenshot. Okay, screenshot done. Go back into TouchChat, and I see that in the bottom left corner, there's a space there. So that looks like a good, it's the school row. That looks like a good place to put the Sutherland button. So I'm going to go into menu, edit page, and then I'm going to select that button, edit this button. I'm going to call it Sutherland. And I'm going to import an image from my image library. We'll select that Sutherland image, and then you can actually zoom right into the logo from inside TouchChat. You don't have to like go and crop it or anything like that. So we'll use that, and done. Now, before I move away from here, I just want to review a couple things in here. If, for example, I needed an alternate pronunciation, that's where I would do it. Like if there's a word that always gets pronounced wrong, so often people's names, place names, things like that, I can put the alternate pronunciation in there. And then to the right there, I can test how that sounds. If you're somebody that's been adding buttons, you may not have kind of ventured below here, but at the very bottom, each button has a function. So this is just like a noun, right? So, and it's just a word. So all it needs to do is this function called speech message. So that all looks good. I'm not going to touch any of this when I'm just adding a word, but I'll hit save. Now I'm noticing that as I look at that row, there's a little bit of color coding. I'm not going to do something fun and fancy and funky with this, right? What I wanted to do is just sort of match whatever else is going on this page. So I'm going to take this like light, I want this light yellow color, but we want to make sure it's the same light yellow, right? So the easiest way to do that, I'm going to touch this bus button. And there's a button here called copy button. I'm going to touch the Sutherland button now, and I'm going to say paste button style. So now it's that same pale yellow color. And that's that. Now, while I'm here, I also want to point out at the very, very top of the page, we have that red banner, right? That red banner is what tells you you are in editing mode. And see how it says places right in the middle there? That is the name of this page. So that's going to be important for some functions later on. But I just wanted to point that out. So a couple things that I often do, just as like things that I do. This technology button that's in the 5th row, there's a wheelchair symbol. And for our friends that use mobility devices, that might be something we need to use. But for some other people, technology means more like computers and stuff. So you can go in and change that if you want. There's also some changes you can make, like Canadianizing it. So I'm going to go into money right now, but you can also use this with geography later on. So we'll go into money. So it goes into the American money page. I don't know if you can tell that at the very top, that's American money. To the top left, there's a button that says Canadian. And now we're in the Canadian money page. Now, hypothetically, if they're here, chances are that they're going to need the Canadian money page more than the American money page. So wouldn't it be nice if you pressed money and it went straight into that page? First thing I need is the name of this page. So we're going to go menu, edit page. And at the top of the page, it says money-Canadian. I'm literally going to write that down. Okay, so then I'll close this page. And I'm going to go back to the original button, which is in groups, right? So now I'm looking at this money button, menu, edit page. I'm going to touch this money button. I'm going to edit this button. And if I go all the way down to the bottom, see how it says navigate to money? Now that money page is the American money page, right? So I want to change that. I'm going to go navigate. Yeah, it's giving me this navigate again. And then at the top, I can actually, there's a lot of pages. I can actually type in what I want. So I can type in MON and see Money Canadian pops up. And I usually use just no animation. Save. Let's check that. So now when we go into money, it goes straight into the Canadian money page. Now, this is going to be the same if you want to add a subcategory or something like that. We're going to need to change some navigation. So we'll take a look at adding a page, but then that would be how you change the navigation of the button that will get you to that page. There were questions around how do I add a page? So say, for example, I'm Japanese and I'm going to go into food, and I notice that if I go into meals, there is no Japanese food page. But like say in my family, I need somewhere to put it, right? So I look at this and I'm like, well, we don't really eat Indian food very often, so maybe I'll put, or we eat Japanese food more than Indian food. So maybe I'll move that Indian food button. I don't want to delete it because if I delete it, then it'll never come back. Like somebody has to remember to put it back then, and that might never happen. So I'm just going to explore that right arrow and see what's over there. Yep, there's space there. I can put the Indian food there. So let's go back again. See how, okay, touch chat sometimes does weird things like this. See how it says with? I don't know why it did that, but sometimes if it does that, I just hit clear and then that button that's underneath comes up. Sometimes it has to do with like prediction and stuff like that. But anyway, so let's ignore it for now. So menu, edit page. I'm going to take this Indian food. I'm going to copy this button. Done. Now I'm going to go to the page that I want to copy it to. And those categories were all kind of on the right, so we'll keep going with that. So menu, edit page, and then I can paste it there. So this is all to say you can copy and paste buttons across pages, right? Like you don't have to always do that on the same page. So we'll go back. Now I need to, again, that with button is there. So I'm going to clear it again. The next thing we need to do is create the Japanese food page. So we're going to go menu, edit page. I know that there are templates in here. So I'm going to go menu, load another page. And see how at the very top here, there's this WP60 basic page template. I'm going to tap that, see what it looks like. This looks great. I could totally start there. But I know that like the food section is kind of complicated, right? Like there's all these links to like fruits and veggies and drinks and all that kind of stuff. So I wonder what would happen if we actually just took the Italian page. Oh, maybe we have to go food Italian or Indian or whatever. See, when I do this, see how it has all that food navigation stuff all there? So I'm going to actually go on this page and I'm going to say menu, import copy pages, duplicate this page, and I'm going to call it in a similar fashion, food space hyphen space Japanese. And I find when I'm doing stuff like this, it's easier to sort of like clear everything out rather than to sort of change it. So, and anytime I delete buttons, this is how I do it. I'm going to copy a blank button and I'm just going to paste over anything that's like not Japanese. And then, so I'll clear this page off. We can see from the top that this has been renamed to food Japanese. And then, so once I clear this off, I'll start adding all my Japanese foods in. The last thing I need to do is on this food page, I need to change the navigation of this button on the right. So I'm going to select that. Oh, sorry. We're going to say menu, edit page. We're going to select the Indian button, edit this button. Now, I'm noticing here that it says Indian in all caps. So I'm going to want to keep that. I'll do all caps and I'll say Japanese. You might notice that it says Japanese in the second line now. So the top where it says button label, that is what is written on the button. Button message is what it speaks. But when we look at the functions at the bottom, there's no speaking function in there. So it doesn't really matter. It's okay. So I won't worry about that. And then I'm going to maybe select an image. Here, that's fine. You can do whatever you want when you have time. Oh, sorry. I always hit OK automatically. And then when you go down to the bottom, we want to make sure we're now navigating. Navigate. Food. And there's my Japanese page. No animation. Save. Done. So now on this page, I have this Japanese button that will take me to the Japanese page. Okay, so I know that that's kind of a long sequence of things that need to happen. So luckily this will be all recorded for you and you can watch it as many times as you want. But the same thing would apply if you, for example, say you have school people, you have jobs, but maybe you have a home team and you want to have like a interventionist page here as well. I firmly believe that your children are part of your family first, and then part of our schools second. And so this first page should really be about family members and your friends and things like that. And then any like interventionist type people should have their own separate page. But you would go through the same um, workflow if you wanted to add a different page for people or anything like that. One last thing I want to show you is how to import a page. So we were saying that, say for example, in your child maybe got a touch chat 5, 7 years ago, and this template has changed, and now you're looking at this going, I really like the way that visual scenes page looks. How can I import that? So let's actually just do that. So let's go into visual scenes. Remember, the first thing we need is the name of these pages. So you're going to need that landing page, and then all the subsequent pages after that, you're going to import a whole chunk of them. So this page is called Menu Edit Page. Okay, this page is called My Theme. Gonna hit done. We'll go into this Me page, Menu Edit Page, Themes About Me. And then these are all probably called similar thing. Like that's probably called Scenes My Family. Actually, let's just go in here and check. Menu, edit page, scene 1. So then we're going to go, you can hypothetically do this from any page, but my mind likes to do it from the page that I want to be on. So we're going to go Menu, edit page, Menu, import page. Import another page. And then we'll go into Word Power 60 Basic. Even if your child got touched on a long time ago, your template of Word Power 60 Basic should be updated still, as long as you've been updating the app. So we'll go into that and then search for scene. And so all these pages, scene 1 through whatever, and then scene about me and scene my family, you'll need to import them, I think, one at a time. Oh no, let's just import them all. This is also new. They keep adding awesome things. And then you do that and then import. It already exists in this. So at home, you would hit yes and you would import them. And then you would you already know how to edit the links, right? So then you would find a place for it and edit all the linking buttons and things like that. One of the most important things when you're doing editing is to make sure that you're honoring all the logic that's already built into it, because it might affect something later on. So, I wouldn't move any of these colored words, like the anything that's yellow or green, it's probably in that particular spot for a reason. I also wouldn't introduce any additional color coding unless like it was really necessary. Oh, one more thing actually I thought of. Um, as we're talking about Gestalt language processors, if your child is a Gestalt language processor, you've probably had this conversation with somebody. If you've never heard this before, it might not be something you need to worry about. In any case, what I've been doing is if it's a Gestalt, I've been making it 2 buttons wide. So I'm actually going to quickly show you how to do this just on a random page. And this might also apply to other things. We're going to go Menu, Edit Page. I'm going to pick this button. And that second function there, it says change button size. We'll select that. And right now it's one row by one column. So if we want to make it fatter, I'm going to select 2 columns. Save. And now I have a button that's kind of double size. You'll see it better if I put something in there. Yeah, so now it's a double wide sort of button. Oh, another thing that I've also done, some people have been asking me about visual scenes. Now visual scenes, okay, I actually made this one day because I got stuck in an elevator. Anyways, so this is what I mean by context rich, right? There's a firefighter there looking inside the elevator. The elevator's stuck. There's all sorts of firefighters around, and there's these hot spots. So what would happen is, so in order to set this up, all I have to do is select hotspot, and I can like do that and select an area and then record something to go with that area. And then AAC user could hypothetically just like press that area and then it would speak. So this is traditionally what a visual scene looks like. Touch chat cannot do this, but I have some families asking about them sometimes. The easiest way to work in context-rich photos is, again, this visual scenes page where I would put a context-rich photo in that main thing. The other thing you can do, basically, Touch Chat is set up with grids. So what you could do is make the grid buttons as tiny as possible, and then import an image into the background. So I'm actually just going to menu, add new page, and I'm just going to make this buttons as tiny as possible. And I'm going to import, actually, let's just start here. Oh, page name. We'll call this test. Okay, so now see how everything's really tiny? Menu, edit page layout. And I'm going to import an image for the background. Oh, let's just use me. I wasn't sure what was going to show up there. So if I wanted to take this, for example, and you know how we can make hotspots on a visual scene? Like say I wanted to do something with my eye. What I could do is I could do the same message on all the buttons that touch my eye. Almost like those CAPTCHA tests. And so here I could say eye and make sure that this button is transparent. So transparent, yes. Yeah. Oh, I don't want a picture there though. Hold on. So clear image. So that button is going to say I. You could also remove the text. I just realized that I didn't do that. So now if I wanted to have a context-rich picture of a face, then I could have that and select I. Oops, I'm in edit still. Oh, I just lost that. And for some students, when we're looking, especially talking about body parts, this type of grid layout of body parts can be really confusing. Like an eye that's like removed from the context of the face can be really confusing. And so things like this are a good use of visual scenes, but they're a little bit tricky to implement. So if you want more information about that, I'm noticing that it's time as well. So if you want more information about visual scenes, look it up online. There's tons of stuff out there. Lots of people have made lots of videos. So yeah, I know that that was a lot. I will upload this to Facebook, or not Facebook, YouTube. I'll upload this to YouTube and send you all the link and watch it later with the talker in front of you and try some things out. Um, Please let us know how that was for you, and I hope you have a good day.